Hey there guys, so yeah, this is just like a part 2 follow-up video to the video I made a couple of days ago about the Day of Reckoning card. And in that video I said that I would make a part 2 talking about the Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker fight, specifically Deontay Wilder. I didn't want to talk about it in that video because I've had these thoughts on Deontay Wilder and his career in my mind for a while. And I just thought I'd make a video on him and his career and why I believe that he has been one of the biggest hype jobs in the history of boxing. So everyone knows of the fight between him and Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker completely schooled him over 12 rounds. The fight wasn't even competitive. It wasn't even close. I think Joseph Parker pretty much won every single round. 120, 108. Even the judges only managed to give Wilder 2 rounds. You might be able to make, an argument for 1 round for Deontay Wilder maybe, but I think across the board it's pretty much a 120, 108 schooling. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised that Joseph Parker actually came to win. Obviously there was a lot of money riding on that fight. There was a lot of talk about the Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder fight being signed for March the 9th, I believe it was. And obviously that's a massive fight. It would have been if Wilder would have got the win here. And it would have generated a lot of money on pay-per-view. And a lot of people would have been very excited about that fight because it's been talked about for years. But no, Joseph Parker actually came to win, unlike a lot of Wilder's opponents. And he went in there, he beat up Wilder. Wilder didn't have a clue what to do. He didn't have any fundamentals to fall back on. He had nothing. Joseph Parker did what he was supposed to do. He used his fundamentals and he just boxed the way he should have against Wilder, which is not what a lot of Wilder's opponents do. They just sort of go in there with the objective to get hit by the right hand and go down, and get their paycheck. So let's start from the very beginning here. Obviously, Deontay Wilder, a lot of people seem to think this guy is like, a killer in the heavyweight division, and he's the biggest puncher like in the history of boxing, or one of them. And he's got a lot of hype, but I mean, the guy's really beaten nobody. I know Wilder's resume gets talked about a lot, but I mean, I've got it in front of me here. He won the title against Bermane Stiverne. I mean, Bermane Stiverne was an okay amateur, but he never did anything in the pros. He was just pretty much like, I wouldn't even call him like Chisora level. I wouldn't even say he was that good, to be honest. His first title defense was Eric Molina, who's a literal journeyman. He fought Johan Duhaupas, who was like a fringe contender at best, who lost to everyone that he stepped up against. Artur Spilka, who's had wars against the journeyman like Mike Mollo, and he's been knocked out in 2 rounds by Derek Chisora, and he just gets knocked out by every half decent fighter he faces. Chris Arreola, beaten to a pulp by Vitaly Klitschko, stopped by Bermane Stiverne, I think, for the vacant title after Vitaly vacated. And I mean, just a journeyman, similar to probably like Derek Chisora level, I would say. Gerald Washington, I wouldn't even call him like a fringe contender. I'd just say he was like a domestic level American, who was actually probably winning that fight against Wilder before he got stopped. The rematch against Bermane Stiverne, which was an obvious dive. Bermane Stiverne, who shows, a good chin in the first fight, is able to last all 12 rounds, just goes into the rematch, doesn't even train, takes the paycheck, goes down 3 times in the first round, takes a dive, and then he fights Luis Ortiz, probably Wilder's best win on paper. Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. It probably is his best win. Luis Ortiz comfortably winning that fight, beats up Wilder, has him on the ropes, hurts him badly in one of the rounds. gets knocked down a few times, but I mean, I never really got the hype with Luis Ortiz. He's a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but I mean, Luis Ortiz in that fight was 37 years old, probably even older. I mean, Luis Ortiz, his real age has never been discovered. He's probably about 50 at this point. And I mean, Luis Ortiz has beat absolutely nobody. I mean, his best win is probably like Malik Scott or someone like that. And his resume is pathetic. I'd say he was a good fighter. Don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't call him like Alexander Povetkin level. I don't think he was as good as Povetkin. But yeah, he's definitely Wilder's best win. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He has the draw against Tyson Fury, a fight which Fury clearly won in my opinion. Fury goes in there, coming off years out the ring. Before he had his whole hiatus after beating Vladimir Klitschko, comes back, has a couple of easy fights, and then fights Wilder. Fury, who dropped from like 28 stone, coming off like alcoholism, drug problems. He's completely out of shape. Just goes into like fat camp, doesn't even train properly for the fight. Goes in there, schools Wilder, wins pretty much every round apart from the round he got knocked down in. And they give Wilder a draw. Dominic Breazeale, which in my opinion was a dive. Breazeale showed a great chin when he fought Anthony Joshua. He was able to take Joshua's punches for 7 rounds. And yeah, I thought he showed great toughness. I thought he showed very good durability. But yeah, Wilder's able to hit him with one right hand, and apparently he's knocked Spark out on the canvas. The rematch against Luis Ortiz, which Wilder lost every round, got beaten up before landing a right hand, as obvious as always. The rematch with Fury, Wilder's got no idea what to do. Just gets beaten up for 7 rounds. I mean, there's nothing else to say. Wilder just looked like a rabbit in the headlights in that fight. He had absolutely no idea what was going on, had no idea what to do. I mean, I remember him landing about 2 punches from that fight, honestly. He had the third fight with Fury. Again, Tyson Fury shows up fat, out of shape, doesn't even train for the fight. He's just wobbling around the ring like the Michelin Man. And I'd probably say on that night, I don't think Fury would have beaten the likes of Joshua or Usyk. I think Fury in the shape he was in was there for the taking, but obviously Deontay Wilder's that shit that he can't beat Fury. He managed to knock him down twice, but I mean, he won about 2 rounds in that fight. After the 3rd round, Wilder pretty much gassed, and I mean, Fury was able to absolutely batter him down the stretch. He had the obvious dive against Robert Helenius where, he landed like a tap on Robert Helenius' nose, and Helenius goes down as if he's been knocked Spark out. And then he gets schooled by Joseph Parker, loses every single round. And obviously he had the infamous fight with Malik Scott before he won the title. I mean, the right hand didn't even land. Malik Scott caught the shot, and then he went down. And there's a common theme in Wilder's career. The Malik Scott fight, I'd say the Breazeale fight, the second Stavern fight, and the Helenius fight were like confirmed fixed fights. I don't think there's any real doubt about that. And I'd probably say like the Chris Arreola fight where Arreola like quit for absolutely no reason when Wilder had a hand injury. I'd say that's a fixed fight. And I mean, there's question marks over every Wilder fight. I mean, they all seem to end the same way. So I mean, are they choreographed? I wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, Wilder, he's been so protected by the boxing establishment. I mean, it's no surprise that he's been having fixed fights. Every time this guy has a dangerous mandatory, there's a suspiciously failed drug test by that dangerous mandatory. When he was going to fight Povetkin in Russia, I mean, Povetkin fails for meldonium, which was like trace amounts, but he failed a drug test and then they banned him. I think it was Andrei Varshik next. He failed a drug test, and Andrei Varshik wasn't even a good fighter, by the way. He was just like, he had a completely padded record, never beaten anyone. got knocked out in a couple of rounds by Povetkin. And I mean, he was clearly too dangerous for Wilder because he failed the drug test. And then, like after if a guy fails one failed drug test, you can say, okay, maybe, it was actually like a real failed test or something. But I mean, in 2019 when Dillian Whyte failed a drug test, I mean, it was just getting a bit suspicious at that point that, these dangerous mandatories were repeatedly failing tests. Not so much Varshik, but I think Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte were very dangerous fights for Wilder, Povetkin especially. If that fight was in Russia, I believe Povetkin would have knocked Wilder out. And I think Dillian Whyte had quite a good chance. I think Dillian Whyte could have been knocked out, but again, Wilder's defense is like non-existent, so maybe Dillian Whyte could have caught him with that left hook. You never know. And to be honest, I mean, Deontay Wilder was always a complete fraud. Like you watch some of his fights, it's like an absolute miracle that this guy was able to win a world title. And then you've got to question the legitimacy of his career. I mean, this is a guy who's got no guard whatsoever. He has no idea how to block punches. Like, has anyone even seen this guy like hold his hands to block punches above his, in front of his face? I don't remember him doing that ever. I've never seen him use a guard. He usually just takes the punches. Very poor punching technique. Very one-dimensional because he's only got one good shot. No idea how to throw an uppercut effectively. No idea how to throw a hook. Doesn't really know how to throw anything other than a straight right hand to the head or body. Very poor balance. Swings himself off balance. Everyone says about the windmill. And yeah, it's true. He throws every punch, every right hand he throws his whole body weight into the punch, so it throws him off balance. Which leaves him like very open to counters. He's very emotional in the ring. If he's losing the fight, he will probably just try and get desperate and just swing even more than he usually is. And in fights like the second Fury fight, sorry, I mean, he just doesn't have a clue what to do. Like when he's fighting someone who's actually, in shape, motivated, there to win, someone who has proven that they are world class. He has absolutely no idea how to compete with these guys. Like, he did absolutely nothing in that second Fury fight. He just got paced in for 7 rounds. Against Joseph Parker, he just had no idea what to do when Joseph Parker was just boxing. Wilder he just couldn't do anything. It was like if you put like a world class fighter in there with like someone off the street. Just like a complete mismatch. It was like if you put like an experienced amateur in with just someone off the street. Like, I didn't have a clue what to do. The only time Wilder has actually been able to compete is if his opponents are so badly out of shape that they're just, unable to do anything and they've got poor stamina. Like the Fury in the first and the third fight. But I mean, Wilder didn't win any of those fights, so I mean, it doesn't really matter. So I think I've got most of the points across there. I mean, Deontay Wilder, probably in the top 5 hype jobs in the history of boxing. And I hope we can stop this notion about he's the biggest puncher in the history of boxing and all this. I don't think he hits as hard as anywhere near as hard as people think. I think his power is vastly overrated. And to be honest, I think if the Joshua fight would have happened at any point, I think Joshua probably would have ended the hype around Deontay Wilder. Joshua's just too skilled. He probably hits harder than Wilder. Much better punching technique, much better variety, much better footwork. If you wanted to just box on the back foot for 12 rounds, just catch Wilder on the way in, just safety first, he could easily do that. If you wanted to go in there and knock him out, he could easily do that. Wilder's too limited to really compete with a guy who's proven to be world class and proven his skill set. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this Deontay Wilder situation. Hopefully, Deontay Wilder retires, because there's no way he's going to improve at this point. And if he gets it back in against the guy who's like, anywhere near to world class, he's not even going to be able to compete. And if he somehow wins the fight, it's probably just going to be a fixed fight. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about this. Thanks for watching, and yeah, God bless.